Hello, hello. Seeing everybody.
Hi.
7 of you. Good morning. Bennett, are you still out west?
Yes, I am. And did I feel the earthquake this morning? You bet I did.
Whoa, didn't hear about that.
Yes.
Big one?
4.5.
Yikes. Are you in San Francisco?
Yes, I am. It was in Berkeley.
Uh-huh. Wow. Did not hear about that.
It woke me up.
Is it cold there?
No, it's about 60 degrees.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like 0 here, isn't it? East Coasters. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Weather report. 24 and snowing in New York right now. But it doesn't look like it continues beyond today, so we'll see. All right. 10 a.m. We're a few people shy. Let me see if anybody communicated this way. All right, good morning. Let's get a move on. Like the other mornings, we'll aim for about an hour as needed. So let's start with what's in the news. It's been a very newsy first week of the year. We had our president putting out a record, like what, 14 tweets yesterday, or what was it, social media blow up day? Anyway, lots of tweets. So what are some of the things on the president's mind via Twitter in the last 24 to 48 hours?
Iran.
Iran, right? Does he have a particular position on that, Alec?
He's all for the regime and
Right.
the protests.
He's for regime change and says that the Obama administration was not involved enough in supporting regime change. Other topics that he's been tweeting about?
Saying that he has a bigger nuclear button than North Korea in his works.
Right. Can you get that at Staples, the nuclear button? But yeah, that set off a round of coverage about whether there really is a nuclear button per se, and it's not. It's a little more complicated than that to execute a nuclear strike, but kind of in a this continuing tit for tat with Kim Jong-un, if I say that right, about nuclear capabilities and nuclear intentions of our country versus North Korea. Any other topics that have been, our president has been tweeting, especially in the last 12 to 18 hours?
Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon. Haley, were you going to jump in on that?
Yeah, I followed Dan Barry on Twitter, and he tweeted about the most dishonest and corrupt media awards, and like he's giving them on Monday at 5:00, and like Dan Barry keeps like quote tweeting and saying like BYOB and stuff like that. So.
Okay, let's take that one first. These are going to be given out Monday, as in this coming Monday?
I assume he tweeted it yesterday.
Right, I saw something about this so-called new awards show or whatever, most dishonest and corrupt media. Do you have any information on like where that's going to be? And I wonder if we could go to it. No, seriously, if we could go, except that we're going to Colbert and Trevor Noah.
I think he's talking about the Golden Globes. Well, that's what I kind of think he's going to kind of correlate it with, because the Golden Globes are that night too. Right.
Well, Golden Globes are Sunday night.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be watching for information about the awards show for the most dishonest. And the award goes to CNN. Let's see. Bennett, you mentioned Steve Bannon. Why has the president been focused on his erstwhile friend, Steve Bannon?
Because he's had a massive kind of attack on the president with this new book that he did with Michael Wolff. That they don't know if it's we don't know if it's accurate, but it sure seems accurate in the eyes of the public. That it just kind of detailed some of the issues and the viewings of the White House towards the beginning of the presidency and through his firing.
Right. So the president had an extraordinarily detailed, long, and personal attack Twitter against Steve Bannon yesterday, because Bannon is quoted extensively in this new book that Bennett just mentioned. The book is not out yet, but apparently it's already #1 on the bestseller lists with pre-orders. The book is called Fire and Fury. It's written by a longtime celebrity journalist by the name of Michael Wolff. And Bannon makes some, not very complimentary assessments of the early days of the Trump White House, causing the president then to fire back with some personal attacks about Bannon was really just a bit player. He wasn't important. He wasn't part of the inner circle. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not representative of my base, meaning my base voters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this morning I just saw something cross my phone that the Trump administration is considering legal action against Michael Wolff and the publisher, maybe just the publisher, to try to prevent release of the book. So it kind of, in a very small way, evokes the Pentagon Papers feud, where an administration tries to get a advanced, what's called a TRO, a restraining order or a temporary restraining order, to prevent publication of information that he believes to be damaging. So stay tuned, all kind of playing out right now. And, I don't know, to me it feels like today's distraction from issues that matter, but that's just my opinion. How about bombogenesis? What's that name refer to? Sophie.
Yeah, the winter storm.
Apparently, there's really something called a snow bomb. It's a real phenomenon based on weather patterns that I can't explain to you. But the media likes to report on the weather, and when there's a kind of amusing or inflammatory term like bomb or bombogenesis, that takes hold. It gives the media something kind of funnish to play with, and not surprisingly, these kinds of stories, when they hit the East Coast, get overplayed because who's on the East Coast? Most of the major media, right? So stories that hit New York or the Eastern Seaboard always get more attention than stories that hit the West, or certainly stories that hit the great flyover country that includes Ohio, right? So just beware, heavy emphasis on this storm. We'll see how it plays out. How about Logan Paul? Is that a name known to you guys? Okay, I saw your head shake first. Tell me who Logan Paul is and why
he's famous for being dumb. I don't know. He does stupid stuff on the internet, and then he's just famous for no reason. I guess one of those kind of things where he wrestled an alligator or something. My little brother said, I don't understand him. And then I did see the thing though recently about some suicide mocking video, some half-assed apology where he conjured up tears or something, and then Aaron Paul and a bunch of people who's not related to him is the guy who played Jesse on Breaking Bad, and Sophie Turner, I think her name is, come out and you're an idiot, rotten hell, a bunch of nasty stuff about him. So he's
okay, right. And the video, the suicide video, was it a real suicide? I mean, did he actually?
I haven't seen it.
It was like a forest in China or something.
It was a Japanese suicide forest.
Yeah.
Right. So he's one of these self-declared YouTube stars, but he's got a lot of following, and this is part of the media landscape too. people who are not really mainstream media players. They're fringe players. They come, they crop up for a moment in time and then they go away again. Some of them have some lasting power. But you have when we talk about media diets and what people are consuming, you have to now include the YouTube stars or the Instagram stars or the Snapchat stars or whatever, who gain a large national following. And they can't, the reason I know about this guy, because I don't follow YouTube stars, I don't watch cat videos. It's in USA Today today. USA Today today. There's a whole page feature on this guy. It's like, okay, so I guess we should know who he is today. So there's that. And next name, we already talked about Steve Bannon and Michael Wolff. Paul Manafort, this was kind of a short-term story. Do we know why he's in the news? Who he is, why he's in the news? He was an advisor to the advisor, that might not be the right term, also affiliated with the Trump administration, and he is, I'm sorry.
Dad, he went to OU.
Yeah, he's from Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, Patty's back.
Hi, we missed you.
Stop talking about me, I'm back. Sorry. My internet just blinked and popped me off. So who's from Ohio?
Logan Paul.
What?
Yeah.
Must be something like, Toledo. Where's he from?
I'm not sure. He went to OU. Someone said.
OU.
I think his audience is pretty young. Like really young.
Because he does all those vibes.
You're young.
So.
It's
from,
from
like
middle
14
school and high school.
Yeah, middle school, high school maximum. We're talking about high schooler who probably should not be watching it. But
That's right. Stop watching Logan Paul. All right, let's move back to Paul Manafort. He was Trump's campaign manager. Why is he in the news today?
He's suing the Department of Justice
For what?
over the Russia investigations.
Right. So this is the continuing Russia story, right? We should be up on that because it's still in play. It's been in play the entire Trump administration. Right. When we went to New York last year, one of the big stories in the news then was the so-called dossier, this document that outlined Trump dealings with various populations, and among the most solicitous was that he stayed in a hotel, I believe in Russia, where he had a dalliance with prostitutes that included nasty sexual acts. And that's as much as I'll say. If you want more on that, go ahead and Google it. But it was in the news because certain news organizations were making choices about whether to publish the dossier. BuzzFeed did, and then CNN picked up the BuzzFeed report and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Russia has been in the news the entire year. We're going to hear about the Russia story as we move through the week. President Trump has a long-standing bone to pick with Robert Mueller, who is is a special prosecutor on the Russian investigation, and is looking for ways to basically de-arm him, right? Get him out of the picture in whatever way he can manage. That hasn't happened yet. Okay, let's see. Seth Meyers in the news because?
Hosting the Golden Globes.
That's right. So again, I read an interview with him today in my USA Today, and his challenge as a comic is to make his remarks funny and yet topical, and that's always challenging for a comic to straddle that line. He wants to talk about Trump. He wants to talk about sexual harassment in the workplace, but in a way that's appropriate to hosting a show called Golden Globes. So we'll see how that plays out. And last name, Chip and Joanna. Who are they and why are they in the news?
They're having a baby.
They're having a baby. I know. I'm sorry. I'm a huge HGTV fan. That's my guilty, those of you who took Ron Becker's class, it's my guilty pleasure in my media diary. Love HGTV, but mostly love Chip and Joanna, and their show is going off the air, but they're not getting divorced contrary to all the chatter out there. They're having a 5th baby. All right, let's move on. So in my inbox this morning was a happy note from our friend at Sports Illustrated. Yay! So all the sports fans are going, yes, this is why I signed up for this class. So he is tentatively set for 1 o'clock on Tuesday, but I have to find a spot for him, meaning a physical location. So I wrote back this morning like, yay, that's great news. But he said, where could he meet us? Which makes me think that he's a guy who probably doesn't work out of the SI offices down in Lower Manhattan. He works probably from his home or something. So I'm working on that, and I'm working on moving our 1 o'clock booking on Tuesday to the last opening we have, which is 11 o'clock on Friday. Okay, so stay tuned. I think it's going to happen. It's Peter King, right? So those of you who are Peter King fans, somebody tell the rest of your classmates about Peter King.
Peter King is a pretty well-known NFL. He's like the top writer of the NFL for Sports Illustrated. And so all the NFL football games are played on Sundays. If not, there's like one on Thursday, one on Monday night. But every Monday morning, he does something called the Monday Morning Quarterback. Mm-hmm. Stuffed up. But that's really what he's famous for. He's been doing that for years. I think it might have used to been in like SIs, but like Sports Illustrated actual physical copies, but now it's online. And I guess from an NFL standpoint, the latest big issue is really spinal injuries and head injuries. The 2 Sports Illustrated issues ago, the cover said Carnage, and then it was an animated illustration of all the really bad NFL injuries this year. So one guy actually got carted off of the field. He played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His name's Ryan Shazier, and he's probably, I don't know if he'll be able to walk again. And this injury happened in Cincinnati, so that was the most major injury this year. So
which team is he with?
He's on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Steelers, okay. Yeah. And so is Peter King Monday Morning Quarterback still part of the SI products, or is it his own thing now?
Sorry, it is on Sports Illustrated's site, but I don't think it's actually in the physical copies anymore.
Right. Okay. Right. And so I took a brief look at it this morning. It looks like it's a weekly podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, there is a weekly podcast, and then he also just has like a rundown video, I think, too. It's like usually 2 to 4 minutes, maybe.
Okay. And that's reacting to the lineup of Sunday games.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Peter King came to us via some friends in Cincinnati, sports writer friends who helped me out. I put on Facebook, hey, journalism friends in Cincinnati, desperate to find a sports person in New York. And so some Cincinnati Enquirer people said, try Peter King. He used to work at the Enquirer. He was there. I think he was there before I was there. I was at the Enquirer from 86 to 94, and I think he was before that. Anyway, assuming this sticks, I'll confirm this today. I will make the changes to the itinerary, but that means nobody is in charge of a portfolio for him because I didn't assign it, given that this is happening late. So I will do some brief, I'll do a brief bio and put that in the same place that your portfolios live. But I do think we have enough NFL fans in the class to carry the conversation. I did read a piece. You can look at his stuff. It's easy to find. In fact, in the reading list, I put it under the tentative, right? So if you go to that link, it takes you to all his recent stuff. But I also just found a piece that appeared in, in deadspin.com, and it's called What Will SI Do with Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback thing? Because it says, and this article appeared in September, end of September of this year, it says Peter King's contract with SI is up after this NFL season. Long famed for his access to the inner workings of the NFL and blah, 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 blah. It's basically saying if Peter King doesn't stay with it, what will Sports Illustrated do with this this branded product called MMQB, Monday Morning Quarterback. So, whoops, come back to, sorry, lost you. Can you see, there we are. Sorry, I was looking at the clip. So I will add that clip about the future of Peter King and his relationship with SI to that reading list. If you want to look at that, then you're a little more informed about a possible transaction there, or possible transition for him. You know, he's a guy who's like in his early 60s. I don't know if he's ready to retire or move on to something else, but okay, so that's the latest on that likely change to our schedule. I also put on schedule updates, we will be going, my husband and I, Doug and I, will be going to, sorry, looking for different things on my screen here. We'll be going to the Post Sunday morning, 10 a.m. show. It's the AMC Empire 25 on West 42nd Street. So our hotel is West 48th. It's just a short walk down the street, down 8th Avenue to get to the show. I will add that information to the schedule. So if you want to join us, you can. But let me know if you're joining us. If you want to walk over with us, we can all meet at the hotel at 9:30. But otherwise, I'll just provide the information if you'd like to do that. It says the tickets are $8, I think, at that hour. So, and that's something that would be at your own cost rather than the program's cost. All right, moving along, readings. So the readings that I had queued up for you for the in the balance of the list, I'm going to get ever less interesting. How about ever less comprehensive, right? I wasn't successful in finding a lot of kind of meaty pieces for you to read about the remainder of our list. So we ended yesterday with Jerry Willis and talking about her battles with breast cancer and coming back onto the air and so forth. So let's move on to Dow Jones. Dow Jones is the owner of the properties we're going to see: the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, those are our two guests, and other properties, but the Wall Street Journal is their biggest one. So let me get to my notes here on my phone. So the first two, let's see, all three of them really are kind of inside, what I call inside baseball kinds of stories. They tell you about some staffing changes at the top of the Wall Street Journal and mention Lisa Bannon in that. So who's our Lisa Bannon portfolio person? Who's got Lisa Bannon? Lizzie, do you know enough about her to tell us about what she does at the Wall Street Journal?
Not at the moment.
Well, I'll tell you what I know and what I remember. And she just got a promotion to be head of the entire arts and leisure section. Let me see what her title is, actually. There we go. She is called the Life and Arts Coverage Chief. And that's a new position in recent weeks. So those clips that I provided in the readings are really just about moving, promotions and so forth within the organization. So I think that, of note is to be aware that the Wall Street Journal does more than cover the world of business, right? It covers arts and life and all kinds of, lifestyle kinds of things. It has a weekend edition. When we last talked to Lisa, which was 2 years ago, she was editing one of the weekend edition sections. Sorry, I'm going to...
Is she okay?
Oh, hey, Alec, I got your email, man. I will text you after this. I just
Awesome. Sweet. Perfect.
So Nathan and Alec will be in the city on Saturday night. If anybody else is arriving that early, connect with them. Lisa Bannon, as I said, was head of one of the pages in the weekend section when we saw her 2 years ago. So in that time, she's moved up to a more prominent role. And just be aware that the Wall Street Journal has a rich menu of offerings, very, very deep coverage of our financial markets, but also what people do in their off time. And you have to think about the demographic of the Wall Street Journal reader. These are people who typically have a fair amount of cash, disposable income, and they're people who have things like second homes and take ski vacations and buy expensive products and travel widely and so on and so forth. So the coverage that Lisa oversees skews to that higher end, right? They will not be having features on YouTube celebrities, right? They're going to do like, new bags to buy for your vacation to Vail, something like that would be more their bailiwick. She is a grad. She's delightful. Our other guest is David Marino Nachason. He's more on the tech and financial side, covers the markets, but he really came up by developing some pretty high-level tech skills, and we'll talk to him about those kinds of things. So the clips there, the reading choices there, both talk about that. Somebody who read the clip about, a new thing that the Wall Street Journal is doing called Reuters, Bloomberg, News Picks. Who understands that enough to explain it to the rest of the class? It's News Picks. It's an app. It's a new app that that Dow Jones or Wall Street Journal is offering its audience. What is News Picks?
I think I have like a general idea. I may be a little off, but they have what they call like these curators and like influential people choose news for like readers. So then the readers can go to this person and see what they have chosen, which is all like reliable news. So like the whole point is to get rid of people reading fake news. Does that make sense?
No, I think that's about it. So it's kind of a curated news list. So for example, Ariana Huffington can pre-read your news for you. And then you can go via this News Pick app and see what Ariana is reading. And if you are a fan of her, then you can say, oh, well, this is cool stuff. It's been picked for me by Ariana Huffington. So there's probably, the app is free. I don't know if, I don't know how they make money on that. That's an interesting, there's so many ways that the media pie is diced up, and you just have to wonder what's the upside, what's the benefit to the Wall Street Journal to have this affiliation with curators if it doesn't bring in more money. I don't know. We can ask about that. I bet both David and Lisa would have an opinion about that or tell us more about how it works. All right, let's move on to NBC News. I was really not able to find that much about Adam Edelman. And he is assigned to Nathan, right? So he's newer at NBC News, and he's covering politics, but I really don't know what what his focus is. I mean, politics is a giant topic, right? So Nathan, have you done enough work on him yet to give us any better sense of what Adam Edelman is doing?
I have him up right here. Yeah, he is new, and Yeah, he pretty much covers national politics. That's
National politics. So the two pieces I had you read, one was about a group called Six, SIX, something like that. Who can explain what that is? Anybody read it?
It's a donor network that helps route funding to progressive causes.
Right. So it's, I guess it's the Dems' answer to an equivalent group that the Republicans have had success with over time. It was an interesting little story. It felt to me like a scoop, like, Adam Edelman found this out and brought it to readers on NBC.com. And then the other one was a story about somebody using an unsavory term. Who was the person?
Defense Secretary James Mattis.
Yeah. So Kate, tell us about that, and you can say the word if you want, or you can avoid it.
Okay. Well, he was giving a speech, I think, to people in the Navy, and just like pretty much just praising them, saying like, he said that means you're not doing some pussy sitting on the sidelines, like pretty much saying like you did something with your life, so be proud of it. But like just the way he phrased it was not the right way.
Yeah, right. So that was I don't know. I don't know that Adam Edelman was the first on that story. Maybe yes, maybe no. We can ask him. But for me, that raises just a smallish, interesting ethical dilemma. NBC is mainstream news. Its audience expects a certain level of ethical behavior. Using the word pussy in a story is, become more commonplace in the last year with the rise of pussy hats and all of that, with the Women's March of last year. However, you do have to wonder, was there a conversation in the newsroom, right? Did he have to apprise his bosses? I've got this story. It's Mattis using this word. I think it's, did he have to fight to get that posted, that kind of thing? So, news standards change as news changes. And when a word that otherwise you wouldn't have found in the mainstream media enters in a significant way, then there's, it becomes more normalized, right? Some of the stuff that I've read about the whole sexual harassment in the workplace, it's pretty raw, it's pretty real, it's pretty specific. Body parts are mentioned that otherwise you wouldn't expect to read in your family newspaper or hear or see online, etc. So, as I said, standards change as the news changes. Let's move to Global Citizen. So this is, as I've said before, this is a site that is actually dedicated to fighting global poverty, and Cassie Carruthers runs the editorial functions of the organization, including its website that writes about global poverty. Anybody read the piece that she wrote about their annual event in Central Park? No? Okay. So this group every year hosts a giant kind of rock concert in Central Park. And the guest list includes people who have come to their site and done something to help global poverty. So it's kind of like an award system. When you come to the site, you get so many, award points or something. If you contribute money, if you sign up for something, if you, I don't know what all the action items are, but it gives you a chance to be in this lottery to go to this big rock concert. So when you open up Cassie Carruthers' list, link, just her bio link on the site, you get her byline, and then under there is coverage of this particular I think it was a story releasing the list of entertainers who would be at the concert. And I think I mentioned before, last year when we met Cassie, it was the first year she had been at Global Poverty, and I kept her on the list because it's a different way to use your media skills, your writing skills. right? It's for a cause, so it's content for a cause. But at the same time, Cassie has high standards on the site. She really treats it like a journalistic site with sourced stories and so forth. They're not all just like, not all the content is just pushing the causes of the organization, right? And then I also kept her on the site because she took on one of our students last year as an intern, and it worked out really well. And I would love for that to happen to any of you in the coming year, or any of another Miami student. So Cassie was a Miami student. She was the editor of the Miami Student when she was at school, and she hired a guy named Ryan Kincaid, who's also on the itinerary, who did some other interesting things before he came on to Global Citizen. So she likes Miami, and she likes Miami grads, and she was good enough to hire an intern from Miami named Tess Songen. Maybe some of you know Tess. She just graduated last year. Tess had a really good experience, and she stayed through the Central Park concert. So she hired on last summer. There was pay involved. That was nice. And she stayed on through the end of September and the concert. All right, let's move to NPR. NPR has been caught up in the sexual harassment scandal and got rid of 2 people. Who were they and what did they do?
One was David Sweeney, and he was the chief news editor. And it says that 3 female journalists left complaints against him.
Right, so one was Sweeney. Who was the other one?
Michael Resky? I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, I'm not either. Right, and he was even higher than Sweeney.
He was the senior vice president of news and editorial.
Right. So I do not know if they have replaced those 2 people. Those could still be still to be hired. But those were pretty big incidents for NPR. So NPR's place in the world is that it's this, uber ethical, does everything right kind of news organization, right? It has kind of the panache of a New York Times. It's the largest provider of audio reporting in the country. It doesn't have much competition, and it just has a stellar reputation. So for 2 of its top news executives to be caught up in this was pretty shocking, right? So that's definitely something we'll want to talk about with Elizabeth Jensen. Beyond that, yeah.
They're also changing the hosts of what's the? I like the show. I don't know why I'm blanking on it. All Things Considered.
All Things Considered, right? So, that's a big move. Because like in the world of network TV, where the 6:30 anchors are kind of the face and the voice of a network. There are certain shows that are produced by National Public Radio that have that same kind of reputation, and one of them is All Things Considered. So they're bringing on Mary Louise.
I just read it this morning. Those articles. I'm forgetting the names, but 2 of them. They're going to a different show, and they're getting two. They're switching out hosts. Is what I know.
Mary Louise Kelly. Mary Louise Kelly is taking over as the primary host for All Things Considered. And then Kelly McEvers, who had been a sub-host on All Things Considered, is moving over to be the lead producer for a podcast that they launched about, I think just last year, maybe the year before, called Embedded. So NPR, like a lot of media, have endorsed and embraced the podcast movement. Not surprisingly, because they're an audio media, right? And cool that Mary Louise Kelly, who's just whip smart and has a really engaging voice, cool that she's moving to All Things Considered. She's been all over the schedule. So let's see. On our schedule for National Public Radio, we have Amanda. Amanda. Are you on, Amanda? whoops, is Amanda not on the call? Amanda is not on the call. Amanda is our prep on that. And the job that Elizabeth Jensen, our guest, has is a very interesting one. She is the in-house, what's called ombudsman or reader representative, or in this case, listener representative. And she investigates all questions of all questions. If you have a question about NPR, it's probably going to first go to Elizabeth Jensen. And I don't mean like, where do I find NPR in my dial? More like, why did your producers do this or that or the other? Why did your reporter, say this about President Trump yesterday? Blah, 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 right? So anything having to do with the content of the shows, if there's any kind of dispute, it comes to Elizabeth Jensen. So she is the person in the middle of the listener with a complaint, or sometimes the source, meaning, somebody gave an interview and didn't like how the story turned out. Any complaints about content come to Elizabeth, and then she has to sort out what to do with them. She keeps a very lively blog. She writes about listeners' reactions and comments and so forth. I do encourage you to hop on that site and take a look at what she's been dealing with. There's the possibility she'll bring in a reporter to talk with us, but the last I heard, she was still working on that, and so I won't know whether that's going to happen. Just as an FYI, sometimes this happens in this trip. Like, we book a certain person, and then all of a sudden they show up with 4 colleagues that we're not really prepared to talk with. But, we don't really want to say no to them. Is everybody still with me? My screen is frozen.